So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Love Juice.
The other day our producer Louis had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track Extra. For those of you not in the know, it's a show that we do twice a week, on Saturday afternoons at 3 o'clock and on Wednesday evenings at 6:30, like this is one of the Wednesday evening ones. And the Saturday afternoon shows for about half an hour, the Wednesday evening shows for about half that, although those times are completely approximate. And we cover all sorts of things to do with Fortean zoology and allied disciplines. Now, we've got that bit out of the way. What would you say the last, most recent British mammal to have become extinct was? Many of you would answer the grey wolf, which was hunted to extinction in these islands sometime in the 16th or 17th centuries, maybe later. I'm not going to talk about the stories of surviving wolves, and there are plenty of them, like the Allendale wolf, for example, because I've dealt with those elsewhere. And what I want to talk about today has nothing really to do with wolves. So if you were to say that the most recent British mammal to become extinct was the grey wolf, you would actually be mistaken. This is because there are at least 3 other contenders for this dubious honour. First of all, we have the Scottish polecat, pictured here in a 19th century painting by the famous wildlife artist Archibald Thorburn. Now, this is something about which very little seems to be known. Apparently, the last specimens of this subspecies became extinct round about the First World War, and they died out finally in Sutherland, right up in the north of Scotland. I know very, very little about the Scottish polecat. I read somewhere, but I can't verify this, that it lived at least partly underground, which is why I've often wondered whether it might be supportive evidence for the existence of the mysterious and rather grotesque stories of the earth hounds, which are supposed to be small mammals that have evolved to live in graveyards and feed off human flesh. Well, unlikely, I would have thought, but the fact that it does seem that there was a mustelid living in northern Scotland until very recent times, well within human memory, there may be supportive evidence of the fact that a smaller mustelid could have evolved to live underground, probably feeding upon moles rather than on human flesh, because humans have not been there long enough really for the evolutionary process to have taken place. Anybody who can tell me anything more about the Scottish polecat, please do. I want photographs, I want citations, I want as much evidence as I can to try to define why they differ from the Welsh polecat, which is the one found historically in all parts of these islands, and more recently which has expanded from its heartland in Wales to recolonise parts of England, quite often with the help of self-styled introductionists. The second mammal, which became extinct more recently than the grey wolf, is another subspecies. It's the St Kilda house mouse, which it's been theorised probably arrived on these isolated Scottish islands with the Vikings and stayed there in isolation long enough to become a larger and more impressive looking creature than its mainland relatives. However, the house mouse, as the name implies, is commensal with human beings, and when human beings finally left the islands for good in 1930, the St Kilda house mouse didn't take long to die out. The St Kilda field mouse, however, does still exist, and it is distinct from the field mouse found on the mainland of Great Britain. But we're not talking about mice, we're talking about something completely different. Something incredibly exciting has happened, and at the risk of sounding like so many political pundits these days, the mainstream media has completely ignored it. The greater mouse-eared bat, Myotis myotis, is a European species of bat in the family Verspitilliononidae. It is a large bat with a long, broad muzzle and big, long ears. The body's dorsal side is brown to reddish-brown, whilst the ventral side is dirty white or beige. The tragus forms half of the ear, with a small black tip in most individuals. Wing membranes are brownish in colour. The greater mouse-eared bat is relatively large for a member of this genus, weighing up to 45 grams and measuring 8 to 9 centimetres from head to tail, which makes it a little larger than a house mouse. It is certainly one of the largest European bats and probably the largest British species. It has a 40 centimetre wingspan with a forearm length of 6 centimetres and a 4 to 5 centimetre long tail. Greater mouse-eared bats are exceptionally long-lived for their size and can have lifespans of more than 35 years. As you can see from this distribution map, it's found most widely across Europe and is considered to be a species of least concern to conservationists. So why are we interested in it? Going back to the distribution map, you can see that the British Isles are at the utter northernmost point of the species distribution. During the 20th century, the species was extremely rare in Great Britain, occurring only in southern England. And sadly, the bats at the only known hibernation roosts declined until only a few males were left. And when they disappeared, the species was believed locally extinct and declared as such in 1992. And this is the first species since the grey wolf to have been extirpated in these islands, because, as the eagle-eyed of you amongst you will probably have noticed, the two species we talked about earlier weren't actually subspecies, they were subspecies. But back to the bats. The species surprised conservationists when a solitary male was found in a disused railway tunnel in West Sussex in 2002. Another male was recorded in the same area in 2023, and experts have now reported the remarkable discovery of a female of the species in the South Downs National Park, making this the first wild sighting of a female in Britain since the 1980s. Daniel Hargreaves, the bat program manager of the Vincent Wildlife Trust, describes the discovery as fantastic news and says that he felt privileged to have witnessed it firsthand. Conservationists have since ringed the female bat for future identification as they continue monitoring this area for additional individuals and roosts, searching for signs of a breeding population. A spokesman for the Sussex Bat Group reflected on the significance of the find, saying, "With no sightings in 2024, the species was thought to have bid a final farewell to Britain. The emergence of a female is a potential turning point for the bat species, long considered lost to the nation." Daniel Whitby, a bat ecologist, hailed the discovery as a remarkable moment that brings huge hope for the species. He emphasized the importance of conservation efforts, noting, "By providing suitable roosts, restoring habitats, and addressing anthropogenic threats such as artificial light and noise, this species might just stand a chance of recovery." The original male, however, has not been seen since 2023. Despite this, the South Downs site has been recognised as a key locator for the species conservation. Nick Gray from the Sussex Bat Group highlighted its importance, saying, "The site is undoubtedly of national significance, and we are fortunate to have it here within the South Downs National Park." The original report, which I read on the Rare Bird Alert page on X a few days ago, claims that conservationists remain hopeful that with dedicated efforts the greater mouse-eared bat may find its footing in the UK once again. However, all these reports insinuate that these individual bats are vagrants from the established population across the English Channel. However, when the 2023 report happened, it was claimed that this might be evidence that there is an established and hitherto undiscovered population of this rare species somewhere in the south of England, and that these individuals are indeed vagrants, but not vagrants from across the Channel, and that if there is an undiscovered population of them, these individuals are vagrants from that particular population. This, I'm sure you'll agree, is incredibly exciting, and we'll be following these reports closely, and, of course, we'll be letting you know what transpires. The eagle-eyed amongst you will already probably have deduced that the footage that we have shown of this species to accompany this story is not of the creature found in Sussex. Why? Because the footage includes several different individuals. It was taken somewhere in the Czech Republic 2 years ago, and I found it on YouTube under the Creative Commons Attribution license, meaning that we can use it. I don't know if there's any footage of the Sussex individuals, and if there is, I haven't seen it, and I wouldn't be able to use it anyway because it would be copyrighted. So forgive me for my little bit of filmmaker's artifice here, but I think it's more important that you, the viewers, see what this species actually looks like, rather than just seeing it in still photographs. Now, this is not the only piece of exciting mammal news to happen in Britain in recent weeks. A whole population of red squirrels has been found in Yorkshire. A rare colony of red squirrels has been found in a Sitka spruce plantation in the Yorkshire Dales, making a significant conservation milestone. The endangered species was identified by Julie Bailey of the UK Squirrel Accord, which is a partnership for forestry and conservation organisations. Miss Bailey first spotted 4 red squirrels using thermal imaging cameras to survey the North Yorkshire site. Follow-up monitoring with additional cameras confirmed that presence of a colony which had moved into the area, the plantation owners expressed delight at the discovery and committed to managing the landscape to support the red squirrel population. Red squirrels native to the UK have been driven to near extinction by the non-native grey squirrel. The numbers in the UK are estimated at just 160,000, with populations primarily concentrated in Scotland, Ireland, parts of northern England and the south coast. In England, fewer than 40,000 remain. The plantation owners have granted permission for Miss Bailey to extend her survey across the entire site. A local volunteer who's been controlling grey squirrels nearby has helped create conditions for the red squirrels to thrive. The area also benefits from other red squirrel populations within a few miles, increasing hopes for the species' recovery in the Western Yorkshire Dales. Well, that's bloody good news by anybody's standards. A few years ago, there was somebody that I've now lost contact with, but there was a young lady with whom I was friends online who had been given some grey squirrel bodies that had been culled by a government-sponsored grey squirrel management scheme. And the amount of flack that that poor girl had on Facebook by people even accusing her that by killing grey squirrels in order to benefit red squirrels, it was racist, which is complete and utter nonsense by anybody's standards. But as my mentor, who doesn't exist, the probably mythical Lazarus Long, once is supposed to have said, you must never underestimate the power of human stupidity. I'm going to be back on Saturday. What am I talking about on Saturday? Well, on Saturday we have the second part of my interview with the legendary Adrian Shine from Loch Ness about his new book about the natural history of sea serpents. And I'll be back next Wednesday. What am I going to be talking about? I've got absolutely no idea. We'll find out when I get there. So, until then, have a good week. I love you all. I hope you all enjoyed the show and